Hello, everyone. This is Silly Sod. We're going to be reading Book 7 of Paradise Lost today. Continuation of the argument from Book 6. Raphael is Adam and Eve. About the coming threat that is Satan falling from heaven. So, hope you're all having a good day. Hop right in. Oh, and singing you might hear in the background. Someone is practicing their opera voice. Book 7, The Argument. Raphael, at the request of Adam, relates how and wherefore this world was created. That God, after the expelling of Satan and his angels out of heaven, declared his pleasure to create another world and other creatures to dwell therein, sends his Son with glory and attendance of angels to perform the work of creation in 6 days. The angels celebrate with hymns the performance thereof and his reascension into heaven. Descend from heaven, Urania. Urania, the Roman muse of astronomy. Her name is used to mean heavenly. Usage is described in line 5 when the epic narrator invokes the meaning, not the name. Guillaume de Salus du Bartas claimed Urania as the Christian muse in his La Muse Christienne and his Saman, epic poem based on the creation story in Genesis. By that name, if rightly thou art called, whose voice divine following, above the Olympian hill, the epic narrator implies that by invoking Urania, following her inspiration, the poet follows a muse that is higher, closer to heaven and truth, than the muses that traditionally live on Olympus. Above the Olympian hill I soar, above the flight of Pegasean wing. Pegasus was a mythological winged horse, offspring of Poseidon, and created the muse's sacred fountain Hippocrene. Rainy, therefore associate with inspiration. The meaning, not the name I call, for thou nor of the muses 9, nor on the top of old Olympus dwellst. Heavenly born, before the hills appeared or fountain flowed, thou with eternal wisdom. This notion of wisdom as a character involved in creation comes from Proverbs 8:22-30. Milton also alludes to this biblical personification of wisdom in Tetrachordon. Didst converse, dwell with in daily intimacy. Wisdom thy sister, and with her didst play in presence of the Almighty Father. Please it with thy celestial song. Up to thee into the heaven of heavens I have presumed an earthly guest, and drawn imperial air. Thy tempering, that is Urania, has tempered either the narrator or the imperial air in order that he, mortal, might breathe the rarefied air of heaven. With like safety guided down, return me to my native element. Least from this flying steed unreined, as once Bellerophon, a legendary man who attempted to fly to heaven on Pegasus. Zeus caused Pegasus to throw Bellerophon, and he landed on earth doomed to live out his life blind and alone. Though from a lower clime dismounted, on the Alaean field I fall, Thea, in modern Turkey, where Bellerophon, according to legend, fell. Erroneous there to wander and forlorn, beginning of this book, the second half of the 12-book epic, yet remains unsung, but narrower bound within the visible diurnal sphere, visible universe that revolves daily around the earth, standing on earth, not wrapped about the pole, above the pole. More safe I sing with mortal voice, unchanged to hoarse or mute. The modern library edition points readers to the reason of church government, Book 2, where Milton complains about his disinclination to embark in a troublous sea of noises and hoarse disputes, like those over church government, forcing him to set aside for a time his grand poetic ambitions. Mute, the editors also suggest, may refer to the silencing of Puritan voices following the restoration of king and church in 1660. Though fallen on evil days though thou fallen, the period following the restoration of the Stuart monarchy was dangerous for Milton. a professed regicide in 1649, he would have considered them evil days indeed, both for him and for the English people. Evil tongues imply that Milton felt he and the Republican cause suffered slander. On evil days, though fallen in evil tongues, in darkness and with dangers compassed round and in solitude, yet not alone, while thou visitest my slumbers nightly, or when morn purples the east, still govern thou my song, Urania. In fit audience, explicit here is the ideal that Milton targeted his epic towards a select few, perhaps those he considered religiously and politically fit. Though few, would drive far off the barbarous dissonance of Bacchus, known as the Greek god Dionysus. Bacchus was the god of wine, theater, and ecstatic poetry. He was also the patron god of the poet Orpheus, and led a group of revelers known as the Bacchantes. Milton's Comus is depicted as the son of Bacchus and Circe. Of Bacchus and his revelers, the race of that wild rout that tore the Thracian bard in Rhodope, Orpheus from Thrace was torn to pieces by followers of Bacchus after he offended the Bacchantes. Rhodope, a Thracian mountain. Thrace is an ancient Balkan territory, where woods and rocks had ears into rapture. But the savage clamor drowned both harp and voice, nor could the muse defend. Muse of epic poetry and chief of all 9 muses, known as Calliope, she was the mother of Orpheus. The death of Orpheus and the muse mother's inability to save her poet son is also a major theme in with harp and voice, nor could the muse defend her son. So fail not thou, who thee implores, for thou art heavenly, she an empty dream. Say, goddess, Homer invokes his muse in a similar way. What ensued when Raphael, the affable archangel, had forewarned Adam by dire example to beware apostasy, renunciation, or breach of faith, by what befell in heaven to those apostates, least the like befall in paradise to Adam or his race. Race here is probably best understood as what we would today call species, that is, humans as opposed to animals or birds or angels. Our more modern sense of race as distinguishing between different groups of humans is based largely on a 19th century biologism. Charge not to touch the interdicted tree forbidden. Interdit, that's French. Or prohibited, if they transgress, and slight that sole command is so easily obeyed amid the choice of all tastes else to please their appetite, though wandering. This word often appears in the poem to imply error, but here Milton must want us to understand wandering appetite, perhaps even error itself as innocent. The only culpable action in prelapsarian Eden would be conscious and deliberate disobedience. Following that, errors of all sorts, once innocence, become tainted with evil. Still, the appearance of the word here is calculated to disturb a reader. He with his consorted Eve, the story heard attentive, and was filled with admiration, deep mused to hear of things so high and strange, things to their thought so unimaginable as hate in heaven, and war so near the peace of God and bliss, with such confusion. But the evil soon driven back redounded, as a flood on those from whom it sprung, impossible to mix with blessedness. Whence Adam soon repealed the doubts that in his heart arose, and now led on, yet sinless, with desire to know what nearer might concern him, how this world of heaven and earth conspicuous first began, when and whereof created, for what cause, what within Eden or without was done, before his memory, as one whose drouth, thirst as a simile for Adam's thirst for knowledge, yet scarce allayed, still eyes the current stream, whose liquid murmur her new thirst excites, proceeded thus to ask his heavenly guest. Great things and full of wonder in our ears, far differing from this world, thou hast revealed, divine interpreter. This title recovers Virgil's nickname for Mercury, Interpretus Divum. By favors sent down from the Empyrean to forewarn us timely of what might else have been our loss, unknown, which human knowledge could not reach, for which to the infinitely good we owe our mortal thanks, and his admonishment receive with solemn purpose to observe immutably his sovereign will. The end, that is the purpose. Adam says this, that his and Eve's purpose for being is to obey God's will. Compare this to Eve's own sense of her purpose in life. Book 4? Yeah. The end of what we are. But since thou hast vouchsafed gently for our instruction to impart things above earthly thought, which yet concerned our knowing, as to highest wisdom seemed, deign to descend now lower, and relate what may no less perhaps avail us known. How first began this heaven, which we beheld distant so high, with moving fires adorned, stars and planets which to Adam seem like they have been placed in the sky simply to adorn it. Innumerable, and this which yields or fills all space, the ambient air, wide interfused, embracing round this florid earth, flourishing, beautiful, or full of flowers. What cause moved the Creator in his holy rest, through all eternity so late to build in chaos, and the work begun, how soon absolved? If unforbidden thou mayst unfold what we, not to explore the secrets ask of his eternal empire, but the more to magnify his works. Adam makes what seems like an important distinction here between the right and the wrong reasons for wanting to acquire knowledge. He does not want to discover God's secrets or seek forbidden knowledge. Instead, he simply wants to extol his Maker's creativity. See Job 36:22. To magnify his works, the more we know. And the great light of day yet wants to run. Much of his race, though steep, suspends in heaven, held by thy voice, thy potent voice he hears, and longer will delay to hear thee tell his generation, how he was created, and the rising birth of nature from the unapparent deep invisible. Or if the star of evening and the moon haste to thy audience, night with her will bring silence, and sleep listening to thee will watch to stay awake or keep vigil. Or we can bid his absence till thy song end, and dismiss thee ere the morning shine. Thus Adam his illustrious guest besought, meaning not only eminent, but also luminous. And thus the godlike angel answered mild, this also thy request with caution asked, abstain. Though to recount almighty works, what words or tongue of seraph can suffice, or heart of man suffice to comprehend. Not only cannot Raphael, though an angel, fully articulate the words of God, but also he needs to mediate his account so that Adam, a mere mortal, can understand it. Yet what thou canst attain, which best may serve to glorify the Maker, and infer thee also happier, render or make it possible to shall not be withheld thy hearing. Such commission from above I have received, to answer thy desire of knowledge within bounds, beyond abstain to ask, nor let thine own inventions, speculations and guesswork, hope, things not revealed, which the invisible King, 1 Timothy 1:17, uses the same for God, only omniscient, hath suppressed in night, to none communicable in earth or heaven. Enough is left besides to search and know, but knowledge is as food, and needs no less her temperance over appetite. To know and measure what the mind may well contain, oppresses else with surfeit, and soon turns wisdom to folly, as nourishment to wind. The simile compares the result of intellectual intemperance, folly, to the result of alimentary intemperance, arts. Aristotle explicitly denies any such analogy in his Nicomachean Ethics. Nicomachean Ethics. But we do not speak of men as either temperate or profligate in relation to the pleasures of ambition and of learning. Nor similarly can these terms be applied to the enjoyment of any of the other pleasures that are not bodily pleasures. Know then that after Lucifer from heaven, so call him brighter once amidst the host, Satan lost his original heavenly name at the moment of his rebellion of angels. Then that star, Lucifer, is one name of the planet Venus as the morning star, the stars among, fell with his flaming legions through the deep into his place, and the great sun fell with his flaming legions through the deep into his place, and the great sun returned victorious with his saints. The omnipotent eternal Father from his throne beheld their multitude, and to his Son thus spake. At least, some editors have amended this phrase to at last, meaning something like in the end or at the end of the day. At least our envious foe hath failed, who thought all like himself rebellious, by whose aid this inaccessible high strength, the seat of deity supreme, us dispossessed, he trusted to have seized, and into fraud drew many, whom their place knows here no more, yet far the greater part have kept. We are told earlier the approximately one-third of the angelic host rebelled against God along with Satan. I see their station. Heaven, yet populous, retains number sufficient to possess her realms, though wide, and this high temple too frequent with ministries due and solemn rites. The least his heart exalts him in the harm already done. To have dispeopled heaven my damage fondly deemed. I can repair that detriment, if such it be to lose self-lost, and in a moment will create another world, out of one man a race of men innumerable, there to dwell, not here, till by degrees of merit raised, they open themselves at length the way up hither. This agrees with Raphael's earlier teaching about Adam's progress towards spiritual being. Under long obedience tried, and earth be changed to heaven, and heaven to earth, one kingdom, joy and union without end, meanwhile in habit lax. Spread yourselves out to make up for the reduction of angelic population, ye powers of heaven, and by my word, begotten Son, by thee this I perform. Milton here departs significantly from the Genesis account by making the Son the agent of creation. Speak thou, and be it done. My overshadowing spirit and might with thee I send along. Ride forth and bid the deep. Within appointed bounds be heaven and earth, boundless the deep, because I am who fill infinitude. That Milton believed that creation was achieved ex deo, instead of ex nihilo, ex deo, out of God, ex nihilo, out of nothing, is evident here. Also implicit is the idea that chaos must be inherently good if it stems from God, which is problematic elsewhere in the book. Nor vacuous the space, though I am uncircumscribed by myself retire, and put not forth my goodness, which is free to act or not. Necessity and chance approach not me, and what I will is fate. So spake the Almighty, and to what he spake his word, the filial Godhead gave effect. Immediate are the acts of God, more swift than time or motion, that to human ears cannot without process of speech be told. So told as earthly notion, human understanding, can receive. Great triumph and rejoicing was in heaven, when such was heard declared the Almighty's will. Glory, these lines echoes Luke 2:14. Glory they sung to the Most High, goodwill to future men, and in their dwellings peace. Glory to him whose just avenging ire had driven out the ungodly from his sight and the habitations of the just. To him glory and praise, whose wisdom had ordained good out of evil to create. Compared to what Adam says in Book 12. Instead of spirits malign, a better race to bring into their vacant room. This implies that human beings were created to replace, in some sense, the lost third of the angels, and thence diffuse his good to worlds and ages infinite. So saying the hierarchies. Meanwhile, the sun of his great expedition now appeared, girt with omnipotence, with radiance crowned of majesty divine, sapience, wisdom, and love immense, and all his Father in him shone. About his chariot numberless were poured cherub and seraph, potentates and thrones, and virtues, winged spirits and chariots winged from the armory of God. This refers to the armory of God mentioned in Jeremiah 50:25. Where stand of old myriads between two brazen mountains lodged. The brazen mountains recall Zechariah's vision of four chariots coming from heaven between mountains of brass. Against a solemn day, harnessed at hand celestial equipage, and now came forth spontaneous, for within them spirit lived, attendant on their Lord. Heaven opened wide her ever-during gates, enduring everlasting. Harmonious sound on golden hinges moving, to let forth the King of Glory and his powerful word and spirit coming to create new worlds. On heavenly ground they stood, and from the shore they viewed the vast immeasurable abyss, outrageous as a sea. This recalls Satan's view of chaos, huge and violent, dark, wasteful, wild, up from the bottom turned by furious winds and surging waves as mountains to assault heaven's height, and with the center mixed the pole. Silence, ye troubled waves, and thou deep peace, said then the omnific word, your discord end. This word was probably coined by Milton to all creating. Nor stead, but on the wings of cherubim uplifted in paternal glory rode far into chaos, and the world unborn, for chaos heard his voice. Him all his train followed in bright procession to behold creation and the wonders of his might. Then stead the fervid wheels, and in his hand he took the golden compasses. William Blake imagines much the same image in his Ancient of Days. Ancient of prepared in God's eternal store to circumscribe this universe and all created things. One foot he centered, and the other turned round through the vast profundity obscure, and said, Thus far extend, thus far thy bounds, this be thy just circumference, O world. Thus God the heaven created, thus the earth matter unformed and void. See Genesis 1:1-3, so very beginning. Darkness profound covered the abyss, but on the watery calm his brooding wings the Spirit of God outspread. Vital virtue, power also particularly masculine or virile, creative power figured as both seminal, but also brooding as a mother hen, feminine image, infused, and vital warmth throughout the fluid mass, but downward purged the black Tartarus cold, pretty crusty like Tartarus, the classical hell, where the Titans were kept. Cold if infernal dregs, adverse to life, then founded, gave shape to, then conglobed, like things to like, the rest to several place disparted, and between spun out the air, and earth self-balanced on her center hung. Milton echoes much that is found in Ovid's account of creation, Metamorphoses 1. Even though Ovid's description assumes a geocentric Ptolemaic view of the cosmos as opposed to the Copernican model supported by Galileo's observations. Ptolemaic is Earth is the center, Copernican is heliocentric, I believe. Like Copernican model, let me look that up. Heliocentric. Which is the sun is at the center of the solar system, or the universe. For Milton, perhaps the ultimate authority is neither model, but Job 26:7. Let there be light. The passage is a fair paraphrase of the account of creation in Genesis 1:4-8. Remember, Lucifer, the light bringer, morning star, when God says, "Let there be light," I think he's trying to also be God. Said God, and forthwith light ethereal, first of things quintessence pure, sprung from the deep, and from her native east to journey through the airy gloom began, seared in a radiant cloud. For yet the sun, this account closely follows Genesis, which describes the creation of light on the first day in Genesis 1:4-5, and the creation of the sun and the moon on the fourth day in Genesis 1:16. Milton ingeniously accounts for the apparent problem by regarding light as created independent of the sun, and figuring light as feminine, the sun as masculine. For yet the sun was not, she in a cloudy tabernacle, Psalm 19:1-4, sojourned the while. God saw the light was good, and light from darkness by the hemisphere divided. Light the day, and darkness night he named. Thus was the first day, even and morn, nor passed uncelebrated, nor unsung by the celestial choirs, when orient light exhaling first from darkness they beheld. Birthday of heaven and earth, with joy and shout, the hollow universal orb they filled, and touched their golden harps, and hymning praised God and his works. Creator hymn they sung, both when first evening was, and when first morn. Again God said, "Let there be firmament." See Genesis 1:6. In this context, firmament is used by Milton to describe the entire mass of air and vapor between the earth and the rest of the created universe. This firmament acted as a divider between the waters below the sky and the waters above the sky and the waters below the sea. Amid the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, expanse of liquid, pure, transparent, elemental air, diffused in circuit to the uttermost convex of this great round. Partition firm and sure, the waters underneath from those above dividing, for as earth, so he, the world, wails on circumfluous, water surrounded all land. Waters calm, in wide crystalline ocean, and the loud misrule of chaos far removed, least fierce extremes contiguous might distemper to disturb the order of the whole frame. In heaven he named the firmament, so even in morning chorus sung the second day. The earth was formed, but in the womb as yet of waters, embryon immature involved, appeared not. Over all the face of earth main ocean flowed, the high sea or open ocean, not idle, but with warm, prolific humor, fertile fluid. The images of prolific humor in the embryon waters are more Ovidian than biblical metamorphoses. Book 1. They remind one of Lucretius' theories of the origins of organic life. That? Prolific humor softening all her globe, fermented the great mother to conceive, satiate with genial moisture, fertilizing or life-producing. When God said, "Be gathered now, ye waters under heaven, into one place, and let dry land appear," immediately the mountains huge appear, emergent, and their broad bare backs upheave into the clouds. Their tops ascend the sky, so high as heave the humid hills swollen. So low down sunk a hollow bottom broad and deep, capacious bed of waters. Thither they hastened with glad precipitance, uprowed as drops on dust conglobing. From the dry, part rise in crystal wall, or ridge direct, for haste, such flight the great command impressed on the swift clouds. As armies at the call of trumpet, or of armies thou hast heard. Raphael reminds Adam of the story of the war in heaven that he narrated in Book 6. Troop to their standard, so the watery throng, wave rowling after wave, where way they found, if steep, with torrent rapture, forceful movement, if through plain, soft ebbing, nor withstood them rock or hill. But they o'er underground, or circuit wide, with serpent error, winding like a serpent, the image of the serpent foreshadowing drama of Book 9. Found their way, and on the washy ooze deep channels wore wet mud or slime. Easy ere God had bid the ground be dry, all but within those banks, where rivers now stream and perpetual draw their humid train. The dry land, earth, and the great receptacle of congregated waters he called seas, and saw that it was good, and said, Let the earth put forth the verdant grass. Genesis 1:11-12. Herb yielding seed, and fruit tree yielding fruit after her kind, whose seed is in herself upon the earth. He scarce had said when the bare earth, till then desert and bare, unsightly, unadorned, brought forth the tender grass, whose verdure clad her universal face with pleasant green, and herbs of every leaf that sudden flowered, opening their various colors, and made gay her bosom smelling sweet. And these scarce bloomed, forth flourished thick the clustering vine, forth crept the smelling gourd, upstood the corny reed, and battled in her field. And the 1667 edition has "ad" instead of "and" here, and some find this an acceptable reading. The humble shrub, and bush with frizzled hair implicit, last rose as in dance the stately trees, and spread their branches hung with copious fruit, or gemmed, budded, their blossoms. With high woods the hills were crowned, with tufts the valleys and each fountain's side, with borders long the rivers. That earth now seemed like to heaven. In Book 5, when Raphael first began telling Adam of things in heaven and introduced the doctrine of accommodation, Raphael hypothesized that earth may be but the shadow of heaven, a seat where gods might dwell, or wonder with delight, and love to haunt her sacred shades. Though God had yet not reigned, this passage paraphrases the Genesis account of the first precipitation upon the earth, and man to till the ground none was. Philip J. Gallagher points out that Milton removes the discrepancy between Genesis 1:11-13 and Genesis 2:5-7 about the creation of vegetation, whether it was made before or after man's creation, by having it created on the third day, but not having it grow because there was no man to till the land, and no rain yet to make things grow. But from the earth a dewy mist went up and watered all the ground, and each plant of the field, which ere it was in the earth God made, and every herb before it grew on the green stem. God saw that it was good. So even and morn recorded the third day. Again the Almighty spake, Let there be lights. With this line, Milton's heavenly narrator returns to Genesis 1 account of creation. Milton has Raphael interweave the two accounts in order to advance the impression that they are simply two versions of the same story. See Mary Nyquist's important article on this issue, the Genesis of Activity. Let there be lights high in the expanse of heaven to divide the day from night, and let them be for signs, for seasons, and for days, encircling years, and let them be for lights as I ordained their office in the firmament of heaven to give light on the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, great for their use to man, the greater to have rule by day, the less by night altern, and made the stars and set them in the firmament of heaven, to illuminate the earth and rule the day in their vicissitude. And rule the night and light from darkness to divide. God saw surveying his great work that it was good. For of celestial bodies first the sun a mighty sphere he framed, unlightsome first, though of ethereal mold. According to Milton's monism, all substance was originally ethereal, heavenly. That's what ethereal means. Then formed the moon globos, round spherical, and every magnitude of stars, and sowed with stars the heaven thick as a field. Of light by far the greater part he took, transplanted from her cloudy shrine, the cloudy tabernacle, and placed in the sun's orb made porous to receive and drink the liquid light, firm to retain her gathered beams, great palace now of light. Hither as to their fountain the other stars, repairing, in their golden urns draw light, and hence the morning planet gilds her horns. By tincture, absorption especially this, or reflection they augment their small peculiar, though from human sight so far remote, with diminution seen. First in his east the glorious lamp was seen, region of day, and all the horizon round invested with bright rays, jocund to run his longitude through heaven high road. The grey dawn, the Pleiades, group of 7 stars, the Pleiades, according to legend, only 7 daughters of Atlas. They may also allude to Job 38:31. The Pleiades before him danced, shedding sweet influence. Less bright the moon, but opposite and levelled west was set his mirror, with full face barring her light from him. Milton here subtly brings up the superiority of the male by gendering the sun and the moon, and describing the moon as dependent on the sun for his light. For other light she needed none in that aspect, and still that distant keeps till night. Then in the east her turn she shines, revolved on heaven's great axle, and her reign with 1,000 lesser lights dividual holds, with 1,000 stars, that then appear spangling the hemisphere, then first adorned with their bright luminaries that set and rose, glad evening and glad morn crowned the 4th day. And God said, let the waters generate reptile, any reptile or creeping creature, with spawn abundant, living soul, and let fowl fly above the earth, with wings displayed on the open firmament of heaven. And God created the great whales, and each soul living, each that crept, which plenteously the waters generated by their kinds, and every bird of wing after his kind, and saw that it was good, and blessed them, saying, be fruitful, multiply, multiply, and in the seas and lakes and running streams the waters fill, and let the fowl be multiplied on the earth. Forthwith the sounds and seas, each creek and bay with fry innumerable swarm. Do you think he tells his son to multiply? No. With fry innumerable swarm, and shoals of fish that with their fins and shining scales glide under the green wave, and skulls that oft bank the mid-sea, make a bank with their numbers in mid-sea, part single or with mate graze the seaweed their pasture, and through groves of coral stray, or sporting with quick glance show to the sun their waved coach dropped with gold, thought in heraldic usage, or in their pearly shells at ease attend moist nutriment, or under rocks their food and jointed armor watch. This probably refers to crustaceans. On smooth the seal and bended dolphins play, part huge of bulk wallowing unwieldy, enormous in their gait. Tempest the ocean, there Leviathan, see Job 41, hugest of living creatures, on the deep stretched like a promontory steeps or swims, and seems a moving land, so the image of Leviathan that serves as a simile for Satan's enormity in Book 1-2. And at this Giles draws in, and at his trunk sprouts out a sea. Meanwhile, the tepid caves are lukewarm in order to support life forms, and fens and shores, their brood as numerous hatch, from the egg that's soon bursting with kindly rupture, natural rupture, forth disclose their callow, unfledged are not ready to flung, young, but feathered soon and fledged they summon their pens, and soaring the air sublime with clang, despise the ground. Under a cloud and prospect, there the eagle and the stork on cliffs and cedar tops their eyries build, part loosely wing the region, part more wise and common, ranged in figure wedge their way, as migrating geese, intelligent of seasons, and set forth their airy caravan high over seas flying, and over lands with mutual wing easing their flight. So steers the prudent crane her annual voyage, borne on winds, the air floats, undulates as they pass, fanned with unnumbered plumes. From branch to branch the smaller birds with song solace the woods, and spread their painted wings till even. Nor then the solemn nightingale. Milton points out that in prelapsarian times the nightingale sang not just at dusk, but through the night. Also he refers to the nightingale more often than any other bird. Till even, nor then the solemn nightingale ceased warbling, but all night tuned her soft lays. Others on silver lakes and rivers bathed their downy breast. The swan with arched neck, between her white wings mantling proud, roused her state with oary feet. Yet oft they quit the dank water, and rising on stiff pennons, tower the mid-aerial sky. Others on ground walked firm, the crested cock, whose clarion sounds the silent hours, and the other whose gay train, the peacock, adorns him, colored with the florid hue of rainbows and starry eyes. The waters thus with fish replenished, and the air with fowl. Evening and morn solemnized the 5th day. The 6th, and of creation last arose, with evening harps and matin, morning song or prayer and praise, when God said, "Let the earth bring forth fowl." Since fowl already have been created on the 5th day, every modern editor I have consulted, John Leonard, amends fowl here to soul. Genesis 1:24 records the 6 days' creation with the words, "And God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds." Soul living, the argument goes, appears to be a likely equivalent to living soul or living creature. On the other hand, 1667 has foul here. 1674 changes the spelling to foul, and foul persists in 1678, Foul. One might argue that since the spelling was deliberately changed in 1674 to foul with a U, perhaps to insist on a monosyllabic pronunciation, there was ample opportunity to amend it to soul if that was desired. So contrary to all modern editors, I am sticking with foul here, the U. We already have living soul created on day 5, so there seems to me insufficient reason to change a word that persists in every printing from 1674 through 1678. Let the earth bring forth soul living in her kind, cattle and creeping things, and beasts of the earth, each in their kind. The earth obeyed, and straight opening her fertile womb teemed at a birth. And numerous living creatures, perfect forms, complete forms, limbed and full grown, out of the ground uprose as from his lair the wild beast where he wones, dwells in forest wild, in thicket, brake, clump of bushes, or den. Among the trees and pears they rose, they walked, the cattle in the fields and meadows green, those rare and solitary, these in flocks pasturing at once, and in broad herds unsprung. The grassy clods now calved, now half appeared. These images are very reminiscent of the autochthonous creation in Ovid's Metamorphoses 1. The tawny lion, pawing to get free his hinder parts, then springs as broke from bonds, and rampant shakes his bridled mane. The ounce, lynx, the leopard, and the tiger, as the mole rising, the crumpled earth above them threw in hillocks. The swift stag from underground bore up his branching head, scarce from his mould behemoth, huge biblical beast mentioned in Job 40:15. In Milton's time, this probably referred to an elephant. So not dinosaurs, all you pseudo-Christian theologians. Behemoth here is an elephant. Biggest born of earth upheaved is his vastness, fleeced the flocks in beating rows as plants, ambiguous, amphibious between sea and land, the river horse, hippopotamus, and scaly crocodile. At once came forth whatever creeps the ground, insect or worm. Those waved their limber fans for wings, and smallest lineaments exact in all the liveries decked of summer's pride, with spots of golden purple, azure, and green. These as a line their long dimension drew, streaking the ground with sinuous traced, not all minims, smallest creatures of nature, some of serpent kind, wondrous in length and corpulence, involved, foiled. Their snake folds and added wings, Raphael describes serpents with wings, dragons. First crept the parsimonious emmet, thrifty ant, provident of future, in small room large heart enclosed. Pattern, the ants may serve as a model for democratic societies. Pattern of just equality perhaps hereafter, joined in her popular tribes of commonality. Swarming next appeared the female bee that feeds her husband drone deliciously, and builds her waxen cells with honey stored. The rest are numberless, and thou their natures knowest, and gavest them names. Needless to thee repeated, nor unknown the serpent's subtlest beast of all the field. Genesis 3:1. Of huge extent sometimes, with brazen eyes and hairy mane terrific, though to thee not noxious, but obedient at thy call. Now heaven in all her glory shone, and rowed her motions, as the great first mover's hand first wheeled their course. Earth in her rich attire, consummate lovely smiled, completed. Air, water, earth, by fowl, fish, beast, was flown, was swum, was walked frequent, great numbers. And of the 6th day yet remained, there wanted yet the master work. Idea similar to that articulated in Ovid's Metamorphoses, Book 1. The end of all yet done. A creature who not prone, standing erect, was taken to be a principal distinction of humans from beasts, and brute as other creatures, but endured with sanctity of reason, might erect his stature and upright, with front serene, brow or forehead, govern the rest, self-knowing and from thence magnanimous, literally magna anima, or great souled, to correspond with heaven, but grateful to acknowledge whence his good descends, thither with heart and voice and eyes directed in devotion to adore and worship God supreme, who made him chief of all his works, therefore the omnipotent eternal Father, for where is not he present, thus to his Son audibly spake. Let us make now man in our image. Genesis 1:26. In Genesis, the pronoun seems problematic. Milton removes the problem by having the Father address the Son. Man in our similitude, likeness, and let them rule over the fish and fowl of sea and air, beast of the field, and over all the earth, and every creeping thing that creeps the ground. This said, he formed thee, Adam, thee, O man, dust of the ground, and in thy nostrils breathed the breath of life. In his own image he created thee, in the image of God express, and thou becamest a living soul. Male he created thee, but thy consort female for race. Then blessed mankind and said, be fruitful, multiply and fill the earth, subdue it, and throughout dominion holds over fish of the sea and fowl of the air, and every living thing that moves on the earth, wherever thus created, for no place is yet distinct by name. Thence, as thou knowest, he brought thee into this delicious grove, this garden, planted with the trees of God, delectable both to behold and taste, and freely all their pleasant fruit for food gave thee. All sorts are here that all the earth yields, variety without end. But of the tree, the prescription of the tree of knowledge and the warning of the death penalty come from Genesis 2:16-17, which tasted works, brings about knowledge of good and evil. Thou mayest not, in the day thou eatst, thou diest. Death is the penalty imposed, beware, and govern well thy appetite, lest sin surprise thee, and her black attendant death. Death is your servant. So in Book 2, he's also portrayed as her son and sexual assailant. Death is the offspring of sin. Here finished he, and all that he had made viewed, and behold, all was entirely good. So even in morn accomplished the 6th day, yet not till the Creator from his work desisted, though unwearied, returned up to heaven of heavens, his high abode, thence to behold this new created world, the addition of his empire, how it showed hidden in prospect from his throne, how good, how fair, answering his great idea. Up he rode, followed with acclamation, and the sound symphonious of 10,000 harpies that tuned angelic harmonies. The earth, the air resounded. Thou rememberedst, for thou heardst. The heavens and all the constellations rung. The planets in their stations listening stood, while the bright pomp ascended jubilant. Open, ye everlasting gates. Closely echoes Psalm 24:7. They sung, open, ye heavens, your living doors. Let in the great Creator from his work returned magnificent, his 6 days' work, a world. Open and henceforth oft, for God will deign to visit oft the dwellings of just men delighted, and with frequent intercourse thither will send his winged messengers on errands of supernal grace. So sung the glorious train ascending. He through heaven that opened wide her blazing portals, led to God's eternal house direct the way, a broad and ample road, whose dust is gold and pavement stars, as stars to thee appear, seen in the galaxy, that Milky Way which nightly as a circling zone thou seest, powdered with stars. And now on earth the 7th evening rose in Eden, for the sun was set and twilight from the east came on, forerunning night. when at the holy mount of heavens, high-seated top the imperial throne of Godhead, fixed forever firm and sure, the filial power arrived and sate him down with his great Father, for he also went invisible, yet stead. Both 1674 and 1667 have an additional and superfluous open parentheses here. I have omitted it and supplied a comma. Milton seems anxious that readers understand that the Father was always with the Son on his creative errand, yet also never left his throne. Such privilege hath omnipresence, and the work ordained, author and end of all things, and from work now resting, blessed and hallowed the seventh day. As resting on that day from all his work, but not in silence wholly kept, the harp had work and rested not, the solemn pipe and dulcimer, all organs of sweet stop, all sounds on fret by string or golden wire tempered soft tunings, intermixed with voice choral or unison, of incense clouds fuming from golden censers hid the mount. Creation and the 6 days' acts they sung, great are thy works, Jehovah, infinite thy power. What thought can measure thee or tongue relate thee, greater now in thy return than from the giant angels? Satan's rebellion was often compared to the mythical attempt by the giants to overthrow Jove. The story is told in Hesiod's Theogony and Apollodorus' Library. Thee that day thy thunders magnified, but to create is greater than created to destroy. Who can impair thee, mighty king, or bound thy empire? Easily the proud attempt of spirits apostate and their counsels vain thou hast repelled, why impiously they thought thee to diminish, and from thee withdraw the number of thy worshippers. Who seeks to lessen thee, against his purpose serves to manifest the more thy might. His evil thou usest, and from thence createst more good. Witness this new-made world, another heaven from heaven gate not far, founded in view on the clear hyaline. Translation of the Greek word for glassy also for the sea of glass. The glassy sea, of amplitude almost immense, with stars numerous, and every star perhaps a world of destined habitation. But thou knowest their seasons, among these the seat of men. Earth with her nether ocean circumfused their pleasant dwelling place. Thrice happy men and sons of men, whom God hath thus advanced, created in his image, there to dwell and worship him, and in reward to rule over his works on earth and sea or air, and multiply a race of worshippers holy and just. Thrice happy if they know their happiness, and persevere upright. So sung they, and the Empyrean rung with hallelujahs. Thus was Sabbath kept, and thy request think now fulfilled, that asked how first this world and face of things began, and what before thy memory was done from the beginning, that posterity, informed by thee, might know. Milton here ingeniously solves the problem of how Moses, presumed the writer of Genesis, could have written reliably about the creation of the universe. Adam learned the story from Raphael, and the story was passed on from generation to generation until committed to writing by Moses. If else thou seekest out, not surpassing human measure, say. The end of Book 7. Wow. Well, that was how the universe was created. Thank you all for joining me. I am Silly Sod. This was a lot of fun. And please join me next time. If you haven't subscribed, please press that button. All right, good night.